Okay, so for this question, it is a sample question of plane geometry where the whole question can be done by congruency and similarity. So I'm going to show it to you. Okay, when you approach a question, do be patient to read the information. So there is a diameter here. Okay, so if there is a diameter, so you should be looking out for the property related to a diameter. So if you can recall what are the property related to diameter, that will be angle in a semicircle. Okay, and of course, because this is a diameter, we expect that the ratio will be something like 1:1. Okay, so that is something regarding the diameter that you can take note of. Another one will be the question says that C lies on the circle. Okay. Another thing to take note will be tangent. Tangent to the circle at A. So you need to take note of a tangent. So this is the tangent that they are talking about. Okay, so then you got to think, what is there any property related to tangent? Is there any property that you can think of that is related to tangent? So if you flip back, you realize that tangent can be perpendicular to the radius. And tangent sometimes, if there are two tangent, in this case we have two tangent here. There's another tangent at C. So this one actually become the tangent from external point. So do you still remember tangent from an external point? These two are the same length. So because there are tangent in this question, you have to relate to the property that's relating to tangent. So tangent can be perpendicular to radius, or it can be radius tangent from an external point. Okay, so we got two radius here in this question. Okay, so after you digest the information provided to you, let's look at what the question wants. So the first part, we are actually looking for congruent triangle. So they want us to prove that the triangle are congruent. So I'm going to color it two color. I'm going to make it blue and red. Okay, so first part, I'm supposed to prove that triangle AEO is going to be congruent to CEO. So you're mentally you got to run through what are the tests. So what are the possible tests? Okay, so there are, if you need to refer, you can refer, but you should also be looking at what are the property. Okay, so the first property, right, if I look at the two triangle, okay, I can list out the property first. I realize that OE is a common length. So that's the first thing I realized. And I also realized that these two are the same. I realized that OA is equal to OC. Reason is just the radius. Okay, so I'll just write the property that I managed to observe first. Another property that I can observe will be the tangent at the point. So E is the external point, EC is the tangent, EA is the tangent. So EA is actually same as EC. Okay, the property will be tangents from external point. That's why you have to read the information. If you don't read the information, you actually didn't realize that these two lines are tangent. Okay, another thing is just now we mentioned, if we have tangent, one of the property is the 90 degree. So this is also 90 degree because it's perpendicular to the radius. Okay, so I've got two 90 degree here. So these are the properties that I observe. OCE is 90 degree and OAE is also 90 degree. And the reason for the 90 degree come from radius perpendicular to tangent. So with all these observation, you can decide what you want to use to prove the congruency. So for example, if let's say the first choice, if you use these three property, you are using three identical lengths. So the three identical lengths will enable you to prove the congruent by SSF. So if you choose this, right, you actually you will get the answer correct. So if you can explain point 1, 2, 3, and then conclude it by SSF, you get 4 marks. Okay, so another one will be, some people may be thinking, oh, what if I don't use this? What if I decide to use the radius? And I decide to use the tangent at the point, and I decide to use the 90 degree. So if you decided to use these three instead, so what do you think will be the property? What will be the congruency test? It will be a SAF. So if you decide to use these three property, then it will fulfill the SAS property. Okay, so is there anything else that you can use? There's actually one more that you can use. One more combination. If you choose to use the common length and the radius, the common length and the radius and the 90 degree. It will be a RHS. Right angle, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is OE and any one of the side. So similarly, if you use OE and you use number 3, which is tangent from an external point, and the 90 degree, it will also be RHS. So you can list out the property that you can see first, and then you see which one can fulfill the test. So sometimes it can be more than one possible congruency test. As long as your property is correct, and then you fulfill the test of congruency, then that will be sufficient to prove that it is congruent triangle. Okay, so with the first part being congruent, okay, now we are going on to the second part. Okay, so don't forget when you got already a pair of congruent triangle. Okay, so whichever that you are using. Okay, so whichever test that you are using. Subsequently, once you prove that two triangles are congruent, which also means that any other angle in the pair of congruent triangle are the same. So you might use it in the second part. Okay, so the next part, actually we are supposed to prove that E is the midpoint of AD. So the question says that, right, we are supposed to prove that E is a midpoint. So having a midpoint is something like ratio 1:1. Okay, so I will be trying to approach this with this thinking. Okay, so let me explain to you the thinking first. Why the second part will lead you to a similar triangle. So if you recall, in similar triangle, we can have ratio. So I'm going to make use of similar triangle, and then I'm going to make use of some ratio. Okay, so my plan, right? My plan will be to do this. My plan will be to prove that triangle AEO, which is this blue color. My plan will be to prove AEO to be similar. To this big one. So my plan is to prove that the small right angle triangle, the small blue one, is similar to the bigger blue color one. So that is my plan. Okay, so why do I choose to plan it in this way? Okay, because if I can prove that these two triangles are similar, Okay, do you remember that the radius idea? So this is a radius, right? So radius is like 1 unit here. So radius is also 1 unit here. And this will be a 2 unit. So I'm making use of the radius versus diameter. So radius is 1 unit, diameter is 2 unit. So actually I'm trying to make use of the ratio here. Okay, because for similar triangle, if I can prove that they are similar, the ratio of AE over AD will be the same as AO and AB. And AO and AB will be 1 unit versus 2 unit, which is like a half. So that means subsequently, I can also prove that AD is 2 unit and then AE is 1 unit. Okay, so that is my plan. So you must have a plan in mind first. Then you can start the thinking, start the actual proving. So if you take a look, this is the plan. So with the plan, you try to prove similar triangle. Okay, so if you recall, how will you prove similar triangle? Similar triangle cannot be proved by the 5 congruency test. So most of the time we will use AA or AAA to prove similar triangle. So now we got to look for the angles. So we look for the angles in the small blue triangle and the big blue triangle. Okay, so if you observe, you realize that this will be the common angle. So if you observe carefully, you will realize that EAO is actually a common angle. It's a common angle in the small triangle and the big triangle. So being common, that means they are the same angle. So I already gotten one angle. So now I need to find another pair of matching angle in the small blue triangle and the big blue triangle. So how am I supposed to find? So I'm going to make use of the congruent triangle. Okay, so I'm going to make use of the congruent triangle. Because of the congruent triangle that we had previously, I will know that these two angles are the same. Okay, because of the two congruent triangle, these two will be the same. So you can assign an algebra to indicate that these two angles are the same. And if you need to explain, right, you can explain since triangle AEO are congruent to CEO, then these two corresponding angle will be the same. So you can assign algebra to indicate that they are the same. It's actually easier if you assign an algebra. So I make use of the congruency that I have in the first part. Then subsequently, because I already got the algebra, right, I can also get more algebra here. So if you take a look, COB will be 180 minus the 2K due to angles on a straight line. So why am I doing all this? Okay, why am I doing all this? I'm trying to get this angle. I'm trying to get this angle to see whether it will be the same as K or not. Because if I can get this angle to be K and this one also be K, that means, right, I found another corresponding pair of angles in the small blue triangle and the big blue triangle. Okay, so I'm using the algebra to focus on the second angle. Okay, and don't forget, COB, right, is isosceles triangle because of the radius issue. Okay, so since triangle COB is isosceles triangle, that means, right, you could have found OBC. OBC will be 180 minus 180 minus 2K over 2. So if you work out the algebra, you will realize that you will get a k plus 2k, okay, sorry, divide by 2. So you will get the angle k. So ultimately you already found AOE. So that means AOE here is equal to k, and then OBC is also equal to k. So these are the two corresponding angles in the blue triangle. So therefore, AOE is actually the same as OBC, which is equal to k. So that will be the other A. So this is one of the angles. So this is the A, and then this will be another A. So with all this, by AA, triangle AEO is similar to triangle ADB. And the implication of being similar is the ratio. So AE and AD will be the same as AO, which is a radius over diameter. So this is a radius, and then this is the diameter. So the radius diameter ratio will be 1/2. So therefore, E is the midpoint. Okay, so in case you couldn't see, right? So that means, right, AE is 1 unit. So AE is 1 unit, and then AD is 2 units. So this whole thing is 2 units. So the implication of such a ratio means E is the midpoint of AD. So most of the time, for in an amath plane geometry, you will find that one part will help you in another part. And if your congruency and similarity is very, very strong, in fact, it will help you to do most of the question. So with some technique like algebra technique, so one of my favorite method will be I will keep on using algebra. Subsequently, you will see in the plane geometry teaching worksheet number 2. So this is just an introduction of how a plane geometry question can be done fully by congruency and similarity. And if you look, this is under the year 2008. Okay, it's not valid. You don't see this in your data series. Okay, so this one, this was the first year that this syllabus come into testing. So that is the very, very first question for plane geometry. So subsequently, you will see more in the dance series.